There are so many Easter eggs scattered around the Forbidden West, and I bet I've got at least a few you haven't heard of. For example, there's a good chance you already know about the God of War totems, but there's also a bunch of Easter eggs for other games including Zelda, Destiny, The Last of Us, Death Stranding, Ghost of Tsushima, and even Donkey Kong. Plus, many of those games have their own Easter eggs for Horizon in them that I'll show you as well. But let's check out those God of War totems really quick in case you haven't seen them. In the notebook under the Collectibles tab, you'll find a category called War Totems. The first one you can find is the Totem of Brotherhood, down here near the Glintalk site south of Letopolis. Head to the mainland beach directly north of the island and you'll find a dead Widemaw with a big hammer stuck in its head. Examine it and you'll get a focus track you can follow around to the east side of the island where you'll find a little alcove, and inside the mini rock cauldron, wood carvings of Brock and Sindri from God of War. But that's not the only God of War totem. The second one is over here in this gully on the west side of the Shearside Mountains. You'll want to start down here just south of the frozen lake where you'll find a frozen axe stuck in a tree. Examine it and the focus trail will lead you up to a recreation of Kratos' cabin. There's a few Sunwings and a Stalker to contend with up here, but if you can get past them, you'll find the God of War himself in the snow under the overhang of the cabin. For the last totem, we have to head way over to the northwest side of the Isle of Spires to a snap moss site on the beach. There's a couple of palm trees out in the sand with arrows in their trunks, and a small bow leaning up against one. Interacting with the bow will give you a focus trail up to the Stormbird site where you'll find this small metal bridge supported by a school bus on one side. Hop up on the bridge and you'll find an Atreus totem on the railing. Once you've collected all three totems, you'll unlock the Mark of War face paint that can be applied at a painter and used in photo mode. Now, God of War Ragnarok actually has its own Easter egg for Horizon. Early on in Ragnarok, you'll need to paddle your way through the Arvengar wetlands in Svartalfheim, and near the water wheel you can find one of the Kvasir poems called The Sunrise of Nothingness, which, when you read it, clearly references the machines and Aloy. I really like these reciprocal Easter eggs, and the God of War poem is cool, but I think my favorite is probably the Aloy t-shirt in The Last of Us Part 1. This was added after Forbidden West launched and can be unlocked by spending progression points. Maybe Guerrilla and Naughty Dog are already working on it, but I'd love to see this t-shirt available as merch in real life. They definitely sell like hotcakes. Back in Horizon though, the Burning Shores DLC for Forbidden West added a couple of really cool Last of Us Easter eggs. If you're familiar with the aquarium scene from The Last of Us Part 2, then you'll remember the toy bow Abby uses to do Mel and Owen's challenge. Well, you can actually get that bow in the Burning Shores and use it just like any other weapon. Although the suction cup arrows literally do 1 damage. So if you want to go a little crazy, you can try to take down a big machine with it. To get the bow, head to this shelter near the Thunderjaw site. The bow is in the building right next to the shelter, but we'll need to fly up a few floors and glide in to get there. Once you're in, just head over to the secondary room where you'll find the bow in a chest. Now, maybe I'm reading into this too much, but I also think the fact that you're taking a weapon from somebody's home, combined with the data point you can find in this apartment, is also a subtle reference to the note Joel and Ellie find at Bill's house in The Last of Us HBO show. The title and contents of this note just seem too similar in their messaging to be a coincidence. Oh, also, fun fact, the voice actress for Mel in The Last of Us Part 2 is Ashley Birch.
He may fall for your little act with these kids, but I don't.
Who is, of course, Aloy's voice actress as well. So there's another subtle connection with this Easter egg. Now, I don't know that this next one is exactly related to The Last of Us because you don't have to use the toy bow to do it, but it certainly is a good use for it. Head over to the westernmost island in the Burning Shores, the one where you have the aerial Stormbird encounter, and up on top of the ruins you'll find a shooting gallery with 7 targets, and next to it a locked chest. Shooting these targets causes them to each play a different note, and if you shoot them in the correct sequence, you can play Aloy's theme, which is the main menu soundtrack for the game. If I number the targets left to right, the correct sequence is 1, 5, 6, 5, 1, 5, 6, 2, 3. Here, have a listen. By the way, there's actually another version of Aloy's theme you can hear by completing the Music and Metal side quest, where at the end, Kore will play it on his new instrument. There are plenty more secret references to other games though. For example, if you head down here southwest of Thornmarsh, there's a fox you can find standing at this intersection, and when you scan it, you'll see that it's called Inari. Get a bit closer and it will start to run down the trail, expecting you to follow.
We descend to the valley now. Follow.
Eventually, it will lead you up a hill to a shrine you may recognize from Ghost of Tsushima. You can't actually do anything at the shrine, but it's a cool little nod to another great PlayStation title. Now, if you've played Ghost and you have the Iki Island DLC or the director's cut that includes it, then you may have come across the Forbidden Shrine. This actually used to be called the Destroyed Shrine, but the name was updated in a patch just before the Forbidden West PS5 launch. And if you go there now, you'll find a statue being gripped by what looks suspiciously like Hephaestus's corrupt cabling, or maybe the cabling from Aloy's spear override animation, and also a little origami tall neck nestled in the base. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a certified small neck. By the way, there's another small neck along with all the other PlayStation game origami Easter eggs in Jin's home at the end of the game. Anyway, read the scroll at the statue and you'll find a bit of a riddle. You can skip ahead now if you want to figure it out yourself, but the line "take up the archer's mantle" means you need to put on the Tadayori's armor. The focus your hearing bit is a hint to use focus hearing by clicking the touchpad, which reveals 3 glowing spots on the statue. And then, you guessed it, you need to shoot all 3 of these to get a cool cutscene that plays a version of Aloy's theme and unlocks the Sign of the Hunter headband and the Seeker's attire skin for the Tadayori armor. But back in the Forbidden West, there's a more subtle reference to Zelda I don't think most players know about. I didn't know about this myself for a long time, but each of the 4 optional cauldrons, so Mu, Iota, Kai, and Kappa, actually have a secret door tucked away somewhere inside with a little Triforce symbol above it. Now, Aloy can't exactly play music like Link in Ocarina of Time, but if you use the D-pad for the Zelda's Lullaby sequence, which is left up right, or ZQX, ZQX on keyboard, the door will open and Aloy will say,
Hey, listen. I think the door's opening.
Which is an Ocarina of Time reference. Then inside you'll find a chest with another Triforce style symbol on it, and when you loot it, Aloy will say,
It's dangerous to go alone without supplies. Might as well grab these.
Which is a clear reference to the famous opening line of the very first Zelda game. Finding these Zelda doors in the cauldrons can be a bit tricky, so I'll link a quick video I threw together below that shows how to get to each one. Oh, and I'm not quite sure if this is another intentional Zelda reference, but the symbol on Thunderjaw ammo drums sure looks a lot like a Triforce too. But those Zelda doors aren't the only Easter eggs associated with cauldrons. The names of the 4 optional cauldrons themselves, Mu, Iota, Kai, and Kappa, spell out Mick when arranged in order of recommended player level. This is a pretty meta Easter egg from Guerrilla World designer Dennis Mika to spell out his last name. Dennis was responsible for designing these cauldrons, and there was actually supposed to be a 5th one, presumably called Alpha, but it got cut from production. Dennis was also responsible for those cool Zelda doors, by the way. I'll put a couple of links below for the Guerrilla stream where he talks about all this. There are some other interesting details about the cauldrons as well. For example, you may have noticed that each machine is stamped with a symbol of the cauldron it was manufactured in. Don't go down the rabbit hole of trying to match these up perfectly though. There's a few cauldron symbols that were reused between Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, lots of machine entries in the notebook have changed, and there's also one cauldron you'll never find. On both the Charger and Tallneck, you'll find a symbol for Cauldron Sai, but Sai isn't found anywhere on the map, and it's not on the Zero Dawn map either. Aloy actually gets Sai overrides when she gets the override module from the first corruptor in Zero Dawn, so it makes sense that we can override Chargers, but we never do find the Cauldron. And it's actually a bit odd that Tallneck has a Sai symbol at all, since we find a Tallneck being constructed in Cauldron Iota. I also think the Sai and Gemini symbols in Forbidden West got mixed up because they're exactly the same. But speaking of Gemini, it's actually the only cauldron named after an astronomical symbol. All the others are Greek letters, though the Gemini constellation is associated with Greek mythology. You might have also picked up on the fact that the Hades subfunction symbol, which the Eclipse adopt as their own and typically paint on their masks, is actually our present-day symbol for a power button, but it also happens to be the logo for Guerrilla's Decima engine, which is what the Horizon games are built on. Guerrilla is actually now marketing the engine for other developers to use, and the most significant adopter so far is Hideo Kojima. Kojima used Decima for Death Stranding, his independent studio's first title after leaving Konami, and Death Stranding actually has a bunch of Horizon Easter eggs in it. For example, Sam can repair structures on his way to different destinations, and after completing some missions for the Craftsman, you can unlock holograms to place around the structures you build or repair, including a Watcher at level 3, Aloy herself at level 4, and a Tall Neck at level 5. Similar to the power button being used as a symbol for Hades and the Eclipse, you can actually find the Wi-Fi symbol on Quen Diviner's medallions. And it's kinda neat that Overseer Bohai has full bars while poor Alva only gets a single little dot for low signal, which I assume indicates their rank. Now, inside the First Forge Rebel Camp, which unlocks after completing all the other Rebel Camps and speaking with Erend at the base, you can find a derailed minecart that's toppled over and spilling bananas everywhere. There's also a red baseball cap inside one of the barrels, which is a dead giveaway that it's a reference to Donkey Kong Country. Speaking of Erend, he's got a little Easter egg of his own. After you learn about where the Zeniths come from, he has a line he'll say while sitting at the base about fighting wizards from the moon.
What's next? Wizards from the moon?
This is a reference to Peter Dinklage's original voice acting for the Ghost AI in an alpha build of Destiny, where he delivered a strange line with a flat affect.
That wizard came from the moon.
The line was eventually cut before the game released, but it became a bit of a meme amongst Destiny players. Guerrilla has a few Easter eggs for their own games as well. For example, you can find a few Killzone weapons in a room near the start of Latopolis. Specifically, they look to be the LSR-44 Spore and the PNV-06 Petrucite Cannon. There's also a few Shieldweaver helmets up on the top of the rack. Shout out to my friend Divergent for digging up the details on those weapons. But those aren't the only Killzone references. During the Heaven and Earth main quest in the Burning Shores, you'll come across another Killzone weapon clearly displayed on a pedestal amongst some of Londra's other things. And then later on when you get to Pangaea Park, there's a holo scene where soldiers are making a last stand against some dinosaurs. These soldiers look a lot like ISA soldiers from Killzone, and it looks like they're holding M82 auto rifles. Guerrilla also makes a few subtle references back to Zero Dawn, including one that's likely a hint at what's to come in Horizon 3. But first, we have a few more somber Easter eggs to look at. Patrick Munnik, who was a lead producer at Guerrilla and played instrumental roles in Killzone Shadowfall and Horizon Zero Dawn, passed away suddenly in 2019. In his honor, the team added a very touching in-game memorial that you can find on an island just off the tip of the peninsula near Thornmarsh. My deepest sympathies to Patrick's friends, family, and his Guerrilla team. Players are probably also aware that Lance Reddick, the voice actor and likeness for Silence, passed away suddenly in 2023. To honor him, the Guerrilla team added a memorial in the Burning Shores. You'll need to head over here on this island south of the Hollywood sign to find it. The memorial is intended to be in the real-life location of the Hollywood Walk of Fame in California. Lance doesn't yet have a star in the present-day Walk of Fame, but I assume he'll be honored with a posthumous one sometime after the 2-year waiting period. My condolences to Lance's friends and family. He truly gave Horizon fans something special in his outstanding portrayal of Silence, not to mention his excellent performances in other games, shows, and movies. In addition to showing their support for these two gentlemen, Guerrilla has also shown their support for an entire nation and culture being suppressed. Head to the Restless Wheeled Relic Ruin, and on the side of the railcar, you can find graffiti that clearly shows the Guerrilla logo, a heart, and the Ukrainian flag. There actually also used to be a message from a Ukrainian developer found somewhere in this area, but it has since been removed as it presumably wasn't officially approved. On a more lighthearted note, if you head a bit further east from the Restless Wheeled, you may come across a sword stuck in a stone, which, of course, references the mythical Excalibur from Arthurian legend. Unfortunately, there's no way to pull the sword out. Now, this might be a bit of a stretch, but I like to think think that this may be a subtle hint that a more developed melee combat system is coming in Horizon 3. I mean, the shield wing's great and all, but remember, it's damaged after Aloy's fight with Gruta. The wing part works, but it's supposed to be a shield too. I have a hunch Guerrilla had plans for the melee combat system to be more developed, and it just wasn't ready for Forbidden West. So the sword metaphorically remains stuck in the stone for now, but maybe in Horizon 3 we'll get to pull it out. But there's a few other interesting things around the map you might want to check out too. For example, in Scalding Spear, behind the big huts near the Machine Strike player, you can find a Tenakth who's dressed differently than any of the others. This seems to be an Easter egg for the old Tenakth aesthetic design from Zero Dawn. You can actually find Ulia, who's part of the Sunstone Rock quest in Zero Dawn. She's the only Tenakth you can interact with in Zero Dawn, and she seems to have a similar aesthetic to this nameless man in Scalding Spear. Back in the Forbidden West base, there's actually a secret room you may have missed. Head down to the server room where you have the nice long talk with Beta, and in the side room where you originally entered the facility, head through the vent at the back and then the next one on the right, which dumps you out in front of a door that needs a 7-digit code. You'll have to piece this code together from 4 different data points found around the base. The first one is behind a vent in Katalo's room, the second is in the botany room on a shelf, and the last 2 are in rooms off the big server room. Some of these rooms only become unlocked as you progress through the main story, so you won't be able to get all the data points until you're pretty close to the end. But you can actually open the door to the secret room if you have the code earlier, so I'll leave it in the pinned comment below in case you want it. There's not any crazy good loot in that room or anything, but there's some pretty interesting audio data points that provide some backstory on the base facility. Back out in the wilds, you'll also want to check out this spot near the edge of the map, north of the Isle of Spires, where you can find the top of the Alcatraz Island lighthouse, along with a data point and a bit of green shine, and this area way down at the south end of the lake in No Man's Land, which is the Hoover Dam. That makes the lake Lake Mead, by the way. Now, I for sure thought this was going to be the entrance to the Burning Shores, especially since you can find the Damn Shame data point from our friend Gildan up by the Spinebreak Tunnel's eastern entrance, where he describes wanting to delve into the dam, but ultimately decides to head on to the Burning Shores. I was figuring he would have accidentally made the dam collapse somehow, and the flood was going to be our route to the Burning Shores, but obviously that didn't happen. But further east on Lake Mead at this campfire, you'll find a few dead Oseram and the data point Machine Dreams. See, these guys drank machine oil after they witnessed everyone's favorite deranged Banuk shaman slurping up some bristleback fluids. If you remember Brin from Zero Dawn, he seems to be able to have visions of the future and past after drinking machine oil, and just like Gildan, he's become enamored by the Burning Shores. Though while Gildan is just interested in doing some good old delving, Brin is on a proper acid trip. Or maybe Blaze or Chillwater trip? I don't know what that guy's drinking. Anyway, he clearly makes it to the Burning Shores because on the wall of a ruin over here, you can find a very distinct Banuk painting. And inside, there's a data point that appears to be from an Oseram delver who was very startled by it, saying he was hearing, quote, whispers from an ancient ghost in the east while looking at it. Now, I would agree with my friend Random Sidequest that this is a reference to the ancient AI Vast Silver that could very well play a key role in Horizon 3. But that's a topic for the lore master himself to cover, which he has in a video I'll link below. But while you're out in the wilds checking out all these Easter eggs for yourself, you're also going to want to make sure you don't miss out on trying the most underrated gear in the game. So I'll leave that video for you right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there in just a second.